We spend so much of our lives searching outside ourselves for something that was meant to begin within. When people speak about finding the one, they often imagine destiny delivering a perfectly crafted person who will fill every gap within them. But connection grounded in truth begins when you stop waiting for perfection and start becoming the kind of presence that love recognizes. To find the one is not a hunt, it is an alignment. You don't attract who you fantasize about. You attract who you are in the quiet moments, in your habits, in your patterns, in your faith, and in your wounds. Love is not just chemistry, it is consciousness. It's not only about who ignites your heart, but who awakens your growth, your compassion, your discipline, your devotion to something greater. We often mistake intensity for intimacy. We confuse desire with compatibility. We fall in love with potential because it is easier than facing the vulnerability required to build something real. But the one you seek is not hidden behind fireworks. They are revealed through consistency. They are not defined by the butterflies you feel, but by the peace you feel when your soul is understood. Finding the one invites a deep spiritual responsibility. It requires you to ask not just who do I want, but also who am I becoming. Love that is sustained is love that is chosen. Love that is holy is love that is practiced. It is shaped not by fate, but by the courage to show up every day with honesty, curiosity, and presence. The one is not simply the person who arrives. It is the person who stays with you through transformation. The one is someone who sees your shadows without running, someone who receives your truth without shrinking, someone who challenges the fears you try to hide. And equally, you must be willing to become that for them. Because divine partnership is not built on finding someone perfect, it is built on becoming spiritually compatible. If you desire a relationship that feels like home, create a home within yourself first. If you want love that listens, practice listening to your own truth. If you want connection that honors your soul, cultivate habits that honor your own heart. You cannot receive what you are not willing to embody. Remember, the one is not found through searching harder, but through seeing clearer, through healing the places where you abandoned yourself, through raising your standards not out of pride, but out of reverence for your purpose, through understanding that love is not a prize, love is a calling, and the right person is the one who answers that calling with you. When you become someone who walks with intention, your relationships transform. When you live with integrity, you stop settling for half-hearted connections. When you embrace your divine worth, you stop confusing attention with affection. And when you stand in the fullness of who you are, the one meant for you no longer feels out of reach, they feel inevitable. Finding the one is not the final chapter. It is the beginning of a sacred journey. A journey of choosing each other, growing each other, healing each other, and discovering the depth of what love can be when two people show up with open hearts and awakened souls. And perhaps the greatest truth is this: the one is not discovered by magic. They are discovered by maturity, courage, and the quiet wisdom of a heart that finally learned to love with intention. If you wish to attract the one, become the one, because love always recognizes itself. Understanding yourself before seeking another is the foundation of every meaningful relationship, because without self-awareness, you're not choosing a partner, you're choosing a pattern, and patterns, unlike partners, do not love you back. Most people enter relationships hoping that love will rescue them from their loneliness, heal their insecurities, or complete parts of themselves they have never learned to accept. But when you don't know who you are, you hand someone else the power to define you, validate you, and ultimately confuse you. Self-understanding is not a luxury, it is your emotional compass. It guides the way you love, the way you communicate, the way you set boundaries, and the way you respond to conflict. Without it, you're not searching for the one. You're searching for someone to fill the spaces where you have yet to meet yourself. To understand yourself is to become deeply familiar with the stories and beliefs that shape your choices. The narrative you carry from childhood, the wounds you've normalized, the expectations you inherited, the fears you avoid. These become the silent architects of your love life. They determine who you chase, who you tolerate, who you push away, and who you settle for. When you don't slow down to examine these inner landscapes, you repeat emotional scripts that may have never been yours to begin with. You choose people not because they are aligned with your purpose, but because they are familiar to your pain. Knowing yourself means you can recognize the difference between genuine compatibility and emotional compensation. Many people confuse attraction with alignment. They think intense chemistry is a sign of destiny, when often it's the nervous system recognizing something from the past, an old wound disguised as passion. When you understand your inner world, you stop mistaking emotional chaos for connection. You become able to see who brings peace, who brings growth, and who brings the lesson you still need to learn. Self-understanding also gives you clarity about what you truly desire, not what society told you to desire. You begin to recognize your real needs: stability, emotional availability, shared values, spiritual alignment, curiosity, depth, kindness, rather than chasing superficial traits that cannot sustain a long-term bond. When you know the rhythm of your own heart, you stop asking someone else to set the tempo for you. You stop molding yourself into shapes that don't fit your truth just to be chosen. You stop shrinking your voice to maintain harmony that is already broken. The more you know yourself, the clearer your boundaries become. Boundaries are not barriers, they are bridges to healthy connection. They help you protect your energy, communicate your needs, and walk away when something dishonors your soul. People who lack self-understanding often end up in relationships where their boundaries are blurred, ignored, or violated. Not because they are weak, but because they haven't yet anchored themselves in their own worth. Self-knowledge creates that anchor. It teaches you that walking away is not failure. It is alignment. Understanding yourself also means acknowledging your flaws, your habits, and the ways you contribute to relational dynamics. It allows you to love from responsibility, not reactivity. When you meet yourself with honesty, you create space for growth instead of repeating the same cycles with new faces. You become capable of choosing a partner not out of fear, loneliness, or desperation, but out of clarity, alignment, and readiness. And perhaps most importantly, self-understanding allows you to hold love with maturity. When you know who you are, you don't lose yourself in a relationship, you expand within it. You don't rely on someone else to complete you. You join them from fullness. You don't see love as salvation. You see it as a shared journey of two people who understand themselves enough to truly, intentionally choose one another. When you understand yourself, you no longer search for someone to fill the void. You search for someone who amplifies the light you already carry. Attracting what you are, not what you want, is one of the most profound truths in relationships. People often create long lists of qualities they desire in a partner: kindness, honesty, emotional availability, ambition, loyalty, spiritual depth, but rarely pause to ask whether they embody these qualities themselves. You don't magnetize what you fantasize about. You magnetize what you live. Your patterns, your energy, your habits, your self-worth, and your emotional maturity become the silent invitation that others respond to. The people you attract are not random. They are reflections of your internal world, the unspoken stories you carry, and the standards you hold for yourself. When you want love without cultivating the qualities that sustain it, you create imbalance. You may desire a partner who communicates openly, yet you shut down when you feel vulnerable. You may want someone who is emotionally secure, but your own wounds may trigger fear, suspicion, or withdrawal. You may long for a partner who chooses you wholeheartedly, yet you struggle to choose yourself. Attraction is not mystical coincidence. It's the natural outcome of your emotional frequency. People who love deeply attract connection. People who fear intimacy attract distance. People who know their worth attract respect. And people who pour from emptiness attract relationships dependent on rescuing, fixing, or proving. To attract differently, you must become different. This does not mean changing who you are. It means elevating who you are. It means becoming conscious of the ways your inner dialogue shapes your outer world. If you believe you are unworthy, you invite people who confirm that belief. If you believe love is unpredictable or painful, you subconsciously gravitate toward partners who reinforce that narrative. The universe is responsive, not punitive. It mirrors your internal truth until you choose to rewrite it. Attracting what you are is also about emotional habits. For example, if you do not practice honesty with yourself, you may attract partners who hide parts of their lives. If you struggle with boundaries, you attract relationships where your limits are ignored or tested. If you are inconsistent with your own goals, you may attract partners who drift rather than commit. When you hold yourself at a higher level of integrity, your relationships begin to reflect that same level of discipline and intention. This principle extends into the spiritual dimension as well. Love is not simply emotional, it is energetic. The state of your heart determines the state of your connections. A heart that is closed attracts people who cannot stay open. A heart that is unresolved attracts situations that keep repeating until healing is chosen. A heart aligned with purpose attracts partnerships that support that purpose. Becoming aligned with the love you desire requires spiritual clarity, an understanding of what kind of love your soul is prepared to hold and nurture. Attracting what you are also shows up in moments of choice. You choose partners who reflect the standards you have set for yourself. If your standard for yourself is low, if you tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or emotional neglect within your own life, you will tolerate it in relationships. Attraction is not just chemistry, it is also familiarity. You are drawn toward what feels like home, even if home was chaotic, distant, or unreliable. Healing teaches you to feel at home in peace rather than chaos, and once peace becomes familiar, the people you attract shift effortlessly. Becoming what you want to attract means actively nurturing qualities like patience, compassion, honesty, courage, curiosity, and emotional presence. It means cultivating inner stability so you no longer seek someone to regulate your emotions. It means learning to show up fully so you invite someone who can also show up fully. When you become grounded, you attract grounded connection. When you embody respect, you attract respectful love. When you walk with purpose, you attract partners who value commitment and vision. In truth, attracting what you want begins with becoming emotionally, spiritually, and mentally aligned with the relationship you dream of. The most powerful form of attraction is embodiment. When you carry the energy of the love you desire, you naturally draw towards you people who recognize, resonate with, and reciprocate that same energy. You don't chase, you attract. You don't plead, you receive. You don't settle, you align. And alignment is where real, lasting, elevated love begins. Recognizing love beyond fantasy and projection is one of the most transformative shifts you can make on your journey to finding real connection. Most people enter relationships carrying an inner movie, an idealized script of how love should look, how a partner should behave, and how the story should unfold. These fantasies are often shaped by childhood longing, cultural expectations, unhealed wounds, and the desire for emotional certainty. Without realizing it, you may project these inner stories onto another person, seeing not who they are but who you hope they will become. This creates a relationship with imagination rather than reality. Fantasy feels intoxicating because it promises perfection without effort. It allows you to escape into possibilities instead of confronting the truth of compatibility, character, or emotional readiness. Projection creates a sense of destiny where none exists, giving you the illusion of connection while masking the absence of genuine understanding. But love cannot be sustained on fantasy. It requires the courage to see the other person clearly, not through the lens of your unmet needs or fears. To recognize love beyond fantasy, you must first recognize the parts of yourself that create those fantasies. Perhaps you longed for emotional safety growing up and now project that longing onto anyone who shows you the slightest affection. Perhaps you fear abandonment and project loyalty onto partners who have never demonstrated consistency. Maybe you struggle with self-worth and project ideal qualities onto someone simply because their attention temporarily soothes your insecurities. Projection is rarely intentional. It is a psychological attempt to complete unfinished emotional business. But the cost is high. You miss the truth of who someone actually is. Seeing love clearly means observing someone's actions without interpreting them through your desired narrative. It is noticing what is present, not imagining what could be. It is listening to someone's words and watching whether their behavior aligns with them. When you let go of projection, you see character instead of potential. You see effort instead of assumptions. You see emotional availability instead of imagined depth. Recognizing love beyond fantasy also means letting go of the expectation that someone else will rescue you from loneliness, fear, or emptiness. When you expect a partner to fill your emotional gaps, you project the role of savior onto them, setting up an imbalanced dynamic where they are responsible for your fulfillment. Real love cannot thrive in this dynamic. Two whole people build a connection. Two incomplete people build dependency. To love beyond fantasy, you must take responsibility for your own healing, so that your partner becomes a companion, not a remedy. Another crucial part of this journey is embracing the complexity of real people. Fantasy is simplistic. It paints someone in extremes as either perfect or deeply flawed. But humans are layered. Someone can be kind yet insecure, loving yet imperfect, supportive yet still growing. When you release fantasy, you gain the ability to love someone in their humanity rather than their imagined perfection. This is where intimacy begins, not in illusions but in truth. Letting go of projection allows you to experience authentic connection. It frees you from chasing relationships that only exist in your mind. It helps you walk away from someone not because you dislike them, but because you finally see that your fantasy was doing the loving, not your heart. It allows you to choose partners based on emotional presence, shared values, genuine compatibility, and reciprocal effort. Love beyond fantasy is steadier, deeper, and more sustainable. It removes the veil between you and the other person, so you can build something real based not on what you hope they will become, but on who they have already shown themselves to be. It transforms love from a dream into a conscious choice, and that choice becomes the foundation for relationships that are not only passionate, but also grounded, honest, and profoundly fulfilling. Choosing with intent, not fear or loneliness, is one of the most defining shifts a person can make when pursuing meaningful connection. Many relationships begin not from clarity, but from emotional urgency, an attempt to silence inner emptiness, escape solitude, or soothe old insecurities. When choices are guided by fear, they are made too quickly, with little discernment, and often with people who mirror our wounds rather than our worth. Fear clouds perception. It creates illusions of compatibility where none truly exists. Loneliness amplifies attention into affection, availability into connection, and temporary comfort into the illusion of long-term potential. But choosing someone with intent invites a level of self-respect and spiritual maturity that fundamentally reshapes the quality of love you welcome into your life. When you choose from fear, your standards blur. You overlook red flags because the idea of being alone feels heavier than the consequences of choosing wrong. You cling to anyone who offers momentary validation, confusing relief with compatibility. Fear convinces you to settle for almost secure, almost honest, almost available because the discomfort of uncertainty feels unbearable. But choosing with intent means you slow down, you breathe, you ask yourself deeper questions. Does this person align with who I am becoming? Does this relationship reflect the life I want to build? Does this connection add peace, purpose, and emotional clarity to my world? Intentional choosing begins with the courage to be honest with yourself. It requires acknowledging the difference between emotional hunger and genuine desire. Hunger leads you toward the nearest source of comfort. Desire leads you toward alignment. Hunger seeks someone to fill a gap. Desire seeks someone to join a journey. When you choose with intent, you understand that love is not meant to rescue you. It is meant to partner with you. You are not looking for someone to complete you, but someone who complements your growth, your values, your spiritual direction. Choosing with intent also means recognizing the power of patience. Patience becomes your protection. It gives you the space to observe consistency. It allows time to reveal truth. Anyone can present their best self in the early moments, but patience exposes character, integrity, and emotional capacity. Fear rushes, loneliness clings, intent listens, intent watches. Intent measures whether the connection remains steady beyond the excitement of possibility. In this patience, you discover whether someone's presence strengthens your life or simply distracts you from your inner work. Another essential part of intentional choosing is understanding your non-negotiables, not superficial preferences, but deep values. Do you want a relationship built on honesty? Then choose the person who tells the truth even when it is uncomfortable. Do you value emotional maturity? Then choose the one who can communicate, apologize, reflect, and grow. Do you desire partnership rooted in spiritual or personal purpose? Then choose the person whose life direction harmonizes with your own. Intentional love is not accidental. It is chosen through alignment, not impulse. Choosing with intent also means choosing yourself first, not in a selfish way, but in a way that honors your well-being. When you choose from fear, you abandon yourself emotionally. You silence your needs, your intuition, your inner voice. Intent does the opposite. It amplifies your awareness. It strengthens your ability to set boundaries, say no, and walk away when your spirit feels compromised. Walking away is not loneliness, it is clarity. It is the recognition that peace is better than proximity, and self-respect is better than forced connection. When you choose with intent, you invite relationships that are built, not stumbled into. You attract partners who meet you with presence instead of inconsistency, devotion instead of confusion, and substance instead of superficiality. You stop chasing chemistry and begin choosing compatibility. You stop fearing solitude and begin honoring your path. In this space of intention, love becomes not a desperate search but a sacred selection, one rooted in wisdom, purpose, and the quiet strength of a heart that finally knows its worth. Building connection through curiosity and emotional presence is at the heart of meaningful relationships. Too often, people enter interactions with assumptions rather than openness, with rehearsed stories rather than genuine engagement. Curiosity transforms the way you relate. It shifts you from trying to impress someone to trying to understand them. It makes you slow down, listen more intentionally, and witness the person in front of you without overlaying your expectations or fears onto them. Curiosity is not passive. It is active, alive, and deeply respectful. It allows you to explore another person's emotional landscape, not to judge it, but to discover it. When you approach someone with curiosity, you are no longer performing love. You are participating in it. You are not projecting your idea of who they should be. You are discovering who they truly are. Curiosity invites depth into a relationship. It creates space for stories, vulnerabilities, dreams, and fears to be expressed. It encourages the other person to feel seen, not analyzed, valued, not compared, understood, not managed. True curiosity is spacious. It makes room for someone to unfold without pressure. This unfolding is where intimacy begins. Emotional presence is the companion to curiosity. You cannot be curious if you are not present. Emotional presence means you are not distracted by your phone, your future, your anxieties, or your past. You are fully here, fully attentive. Presence communicates love more powerfully than any poetic words ever could. It tells the other person, your existence matters in this moment. It is one of the rarest gifts in a world overflowing with noise and disconnection. Presence also dissolves defensive walls. When someone feels your attention, your calmness, and your willingness to remain with them even when emotions get messy, they begin to trust you. They begin to open. They begin to feel safe expressing parts of themselves they usually hide. Emotional presence is not about fixing emotions. It is about witnessing them. It is the courage to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it, to stay engaged instead of shutting down, to connect instead of collapsing into old patterns. Curiosity and emotional presence together create a relationship that breathes. When you are curious, you listen without preparing a response. You observe without assuming meaning. You ask questions that show you care about the inner world, not just the outer performance. This deep listening is a spiritual act. It honors the soul behind the story. It transforms the ordinary into sacred connection. A relationship without curiosity becomes stagnant. A relationship without presence becomes hollow. When curiosity fades, people stop discovering each other. They stop learning how their partner is evolving or struggling. They rely on old versions of one another and miss the person who is standing right in front of them. Presence is what keeps love alive, because presence lets you meet your partner again and again as they grow, shift, and unfold. Curiosity also helps you move through conflict more gracefully. Instead of reacting defensively, you become curious about what the moment is trying to reveal. Instead of assuming intent, you ask for clarity. Instead of shutting down, you stay open. Curiosity disarms arguments by shifting the focus from blame to understanding. Presence stabilizes the emotional space so that healing can happen without fear. When you cultivate curiosity within yourself, you also learn to be curious about your own emotions, your triggers, your needs, your fears. This self-curiosity helps you approach relationships with empathy rather than projection. You become less reactive and more responsive. You stop taking everything personally and start exploring what the moment is teaching you. This skill enriches every interaction and strengthens every bond. Ultimately, building connection through curiosity and emotional presence turns relationships into living, growing, evolving journeys. It infuses love with freshness, depth, and truth. It brings out the best in both partners because it invites authenticity instead of performance. It encourages vulnerability instead of guardedness. It allows love to be something you explore, not something you control. When you meet another person with genuine curiosity and grounded emotional presence, you create an atmosphere where two souls can meet honestly. And in that meeting, real connection is born, connection that is resilient, nurturing, and profoundly alive. Honoring love as a daily practice, not a one-time discovery, is one of the most essential truths for anyone seeking a lasting connection. Many people believe that once they find the one, the work is over, that love will sustain itself simply because two people feel deeply for each other. But real love does not remain alive through intention alone. It thrives through consistent action. Love is not a destination you arrive at. It is a living, breathing practice that you must tend to with patience, attention, and devotion. It is a garden that requires daily nurturing, not a treasure you simply lock away for safekeeping. When you treat love as a one-time discovery, you fall into the illusion that the initial spark, chemistry, or excitement is enough to carry a relationship through seasons of change. But the truth is that passion without practice fades, chemistry without commitment fractures, compatibility without effort stagnates. Love endures when both people show up every day with willingness, not just to receive love, but to give it. Not just when it feels easy, but especially when it feels challenging. Honoring love as a daily practice means choosing your partner repeatedly, even in moments when emotions are messy or clarity is hard to find. It means greeting each other with curiosity instead of assumption, hope instead of cynicism, softness instead of defense. It means recognizing that resentment grows where communication ends, and intimacy grows where presence begins. Love as practice requires emotional maintenance, checking in, reconnecting, realigning. It is the courage to repair, to apologize, to forgive, and to try again. This practice also means showing love through small, consistent gestures. Grand gestures may impress for a moment, but daily acts of kindness, respect, and appreciation build a foundation that lasts. A gentle tone, a sincere question, a shared silence, a thoughtful touch, a moment of undivided attention. These are the behaviors that communicate. I see you, I value you, I choose you today. Love does not need extravagance, it needs sincerity. Treating love as a practice also means tending to your own inner world. You cannot show up fully for someone else if you are disconnected from yourself. Self-awareness, emotional regulation, and intentional living are forms of love that ripple outward into your relationship. When you take responsibility for your triggers, your healing, and your growth, you prevent unnecessary burdens from falling on your partner. You become a source of stability rather than chaos, warmth rather than withdrawal. Love practiced inward becomes love practiced outward. Another dimension of daily practice is giving your relationship space to evolve. People grow, circumstances shift, desires deepen or change. When you honor love daily, you remain open to learning your partner again and again. You don't cling to an old version of them. You allow them to unfold. You update your understanding of their needs, fears, and dreams. This adaptability keeps love alive because it honors change rather than resisting it. Love as practice also means embracing the sacred balance between togetherness and individuality. You are two individuals choosing to share a path, not two halves trying to merge into one identity. When you nurture your passions, friendships, and personal growth, you bring a richer self into the relationship. And when your partner does the same, the relationship becomes a meeting of fullness rather than a fusion born of fear or dependency. Practicing love daily also involves protecting the bond from distractions, complacency, and emotional neglect. It requires awareness of how easily connection can fade when unacknowledged. Moments of disconnect should be invitations to repair, not reasons to drift apart. This mindset creates resilience. It transforms challenges into opportunities for deeper understanding and intimacy. Ultimately, honoring love as a daily practice is about devotion, not the rigid kind that feels forced, but the soulful kind that feels like an offering. It is the recognition that love is not found, it is built, not perfected, cultivated, not preserved in its beginning state, enriched through time, presence, and mutual effort. When love becomes a practice, it becomes an anchor steady, alive, and capable of holding two hearts through every season. Thank you so much for your time, guidance, and support. I truly appreciate everything and will carry it with me. Wishing you all the best. Good. Bye for now, and may your days be filled with joy and success.